The dry season had transformed the Masai Mara National Reserve in Kenya into a tinderbox. The sun, a relentless tyrant, beat down on the parched earth, turning the golden grasslands into a sea of brittle straw. The iconic acacia trees, usually symbols of resilience, stood like skeletal sentinels against the blazing sky. A suffocated stillness hung in the air, broken only by the occasional rasping call of a vulture circling overhead. Within this parched landscape, a pride of lions, led by the formidable matriarch Seraphina, struggled for survival. Their usual hunting grounds had yielded little in hunger, whetted their bellies driven by desperation. They embarked on a daring hunt for a solitary, elusive wildebeest. However, the hunt descended into chaos. The surprisingly agile wildebeest led them on a frantic chase through thorny thickets and rocky outcrops. In the confusion, Seraphina, preoccupied with the hunt, lost track of her tiny, weeks-old cub. In panic seized Seraphina. She abandoned the hunt, her roars echoing through the desolate expanse, a desperate plea for her lost cub. But Ember was nowhere to be found. The vastness of the Mara, usually a source of life, now felt like a cruel, unforgiving trap. Then the unthinkable happened, a spark perhaps, from a lightning strike, or a carelessly discarded ember, from a nomadic fire ignited the dry grass. The fire, fueled by the relentless winds, spread with terrifying speed, engulfing the Mara. In a raging inferno, the sky turned a menacing orange, and a thick, acrid smoke choked the air, blotting out the sun. News of the devastating fire reached Nairobi, and the Kenya Wildlife Service KWS immediately activated its emergency response teams. The fire brigade, led by the seasoned Captain Leo, a man whose heart beat in rhythm with the wild, was dispatched to the Mara. Leo, a veteran firefighter with a deep respect for the natural world, felt a sense of profound dread. He knew that this fire was not just a threat to the grasslands, it was a threat to the very soul of the Mara. Meanwhile, on a small rocky hill overlooking the unfolding chaos, Seraphina stood, her gaze fixed on the distant smoke. She had seen the initial flames erupt, a terrifying orange glow against the horizon. She watched as the fire spread, a creeping monster consuming the land. For her vantage point, she could make out the silhouettes of animals fleeing, their panicked movements of stark contrast to the relentless advance of the flames. Unbeknownst to her, her tiny cub Ember was trapped within the heart of the inferno, seeking desperate refuge beneath the ancient Bobath. She could not see the small cub, nor the danger was in. She only saw the fire, and the fear was creating upon reaching the reserve. Leo and his team were confronted with an apocalyptic scene. Walls of flames danced across the horizon, consuming everything in their path. The air was thick with smoke, and the ground trembled with the roar of the fire. The heat was unbearable even through their protective gear. The firefighters, their faces grim, sprang into action, battling the inferno with a combination of skill and determination. Ember, alone and terrified, found himself trapped amidst the rapidly advancing flames. The heat was searing, and the smoke stung his eyes and lungs. He stumbled blindly, his tiny paws burning on the scorched earth. Desperate for shelter, he spotted a small opening beneath the gnarled roots of an ancient baobab tree. With a surge of adrenaline, he scrambled into the crevice, seeking refuge from the inferno. Leo, his face streaked with soot and sweat, was fighting a particularly intense blaze when he heard a faint, desperate cry. It was a sound that pierced through the roar of the fire, a sound of pure, unadulterated fear. He followed the sound, his senses heightened, his adrenaline pumping. Thick smoke and suffocating heat surrounded him, but Leo pressed on, his instincts guiding him. He knew time was running out to give Leo more strength and courage to find Ember. Like this video, in comment 1, he found Ember huddled in the crevice. His fur singed, his eyes wide with terror. Leo's heart ached at the sight of the vulnerable cub. He carefully scooped up Ember, holding him close, and wrapped him in a wet, fire-resistant blanket. He carried the cub back to the fire truck, his every step of battle against the encroaching flames, and the swirling smoke hours blurred into an eternity as the firefighters battled the relentless blaze. The sun, obscured by the smoke, was a dull red orb in the sky. Finally, after a grueling struggle, the fire was contained, leaving behind a desolate, blackened landscape. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the crackling of dying embers and the occasional whirring of the freight truck engines. Serafina, meanwhile, had been frantically searching for a cup. Her roars, once powerful and commanding, were now hoarse whispers, her hope dwindling with each passing hour. She wandered aimlessly, her heart a lean weight, passing by the rescue teams without even noticing them. So great was her distress. Leo, after ensuring the fire was completely extinguished, took Ember to the KW's Animal Rescue Center, a temporary facility set up to care for the injured wildlife. The cub was weak and traumatized, but under the expert care of the KWS veterinarians, he slowly began to recover. Leo visited Ember every day, a silent bond forming between them. The cub, named Ember by Leo's team, seemed to recognize the firefighter, his eyes lighting up whenever Leo entered the enclosure. Days later, Ember was strong enough to return to the Mara. Leo, along with a team of KW's Rangers, embarked on a mission to reunite Ember with his mother. They knew it was a long shot given the vastness of the reserve and the devastation caused by the fire, but they were determined to try. The search began. They followed Serafina's tracks, her paw prints, a trail of sorrow across the scorched earth. They scanned the horizon, their eyes searching for any sign of the lioness the Rangers used advanced tracking technology, and called out, hoping to elicit a response. The first few days were fruitless. Serafina was elusive, her movements erratic, driven by grief and desperation. Leo and the Rangers were beginning to lose hope. The Mara, once a vibrant ecosystem, now felt like a graveyard of lost dreams. Then one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the blackened landscape, they spotted her. She was thin, her ribs visible, her eyes hollow. She was pacing restlessly, her gaze fixed on the ground, a picture of profound sorrow. Leo, holding Ember, approached cautiously. They stopped a safe distance away and gently placed Ember on the ground. The cub, sensing his mother's presence, let out a soft, tentative mew, a sound that carried across the stillness of Amara. Serafina had snapped up. She froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. She stared at the cub, her expression a mixture of shock and disbelief. Then, with a low growl that was more of a sob, she rushed forward, her body trembling with emo. Ember, recognizing his mother, ran towards her, his tiny legs pumping. Serafina nuzzled him, her tongue gently licking his fur, her purrs a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the quiet reserve. She enveloped him in her, embraced her body, trembling with emotion. Leo and the Rangers watched from a distance, their eyes filled with tears. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated joy, a testate to the enduring bond between mother and child. The Rangers were all overjoyed, as was Leo, who felt a deep sense of peace wash over him. The scene was a symphony of reunion. Serafina purred a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the quiet reserve. Ember snuggled against her, his fear replaced by a sense of security. The Rangers used their binoculars to see the minute details of the reunion. The love between the two was evident as the sun set, casting long shadows across the savannah. Serafina and Ember walked away. Their silhouettes merging into the twilight, they were together again. Their bond stronger than ever. Leo and the Rangers watched them go. Their hearts filled with peace. They knew that the Mara had been scarred, but it had also been healed. The fire had taken much, but had also given back a precious life. As